it working now? Okay. Hi there, this is I think the 7th in these little efforts of mine, but the number isn't important. Today we're on cornets, and there's a row here of 9 different cornets, 1 or 2 of which you will have seen, but most of which you almost certainly won't have seen. Some I've touched on briefly before, but I've decided just to leave them in because they complete the series. The first one is distinctly unusual. It's a made-up cornet from bits and pieces of other ones. It's a soprano. I rather like the shape. The valves were adapted from another cornet and didn't properly fit. So there's been a hell of a job getting it to work. But it makes a sort of halfway reasonable tone. Just about acceptable as a band soprano, played by a much better player than me, hopefully. This is extremely unusual. This is a Meredith open tone cornet, and he has gone to absolutely extraordinary lengths to make certain that the passage of air goes through a round tube which stays perfectly round, unlike modern valves, which has necessitated bits and pieces like this to make absolutely certain that everything is in order and that the tube is always perfectly circular. Meredith was a very odd bloke. He only made about 100 cornets in his life. I'm lucky to have this one with the A adapter on it, if you want it. And he is reputed to have done all the engraving on his cornets himself. It's a pity he didn't survive, because it's a beautiful cornet to play and very easy. I think the adjective is free-blowing. This is truly unusual. This is the ancestor of the cornet. It's an 1865 Cornepian with Stölzel valves, which means that the air goes into the valve sideways at the top half of the valve, and at the bottom half of the valve it goes down the valve. But it's survived 156 years of fairly hard use and seems to work perfectly okay. You could play it in a cornet section in a brass band. There's absolutely no trigger or anything like it. You're expected to do everything with the lips, which is actually slightly easier with Stölzel valves. And of course it comes with an extension which copes with the fact that this was made when everything was very high pitch and everything's now very low pitch. But it's had little markers made on the slides to show exactly how far you pull the slides out to put it into modern low pitch. This one is a real beaut. It's an original Besson compensating cornet. You can always tell compensating cornets made on the Great British System, invented by David Blakely in 1874. It always means that where you normally have a long third valve, there's a very short third valve extension on these, because the third valve is carried back to the first valve once the extension system is in operation. It works through the third valve. Since the third valve operates the longest tube, it is the most difficult to bring into tune. But if you listen carefully as I go down the scale, they are in tune. And there is, of course, no trigger for that reason. And it's got a rather nice double spit key. If I can find it. Oh, there we go, yeah. Because there's 2 tubes involved. There's an awful lot of tuning in these, but It's a very clever system. They're getting very rare now, and it's very nice to have. I hate using triggers, and you don't have to with that. This one we featured before. You know echo cornets when you see them. This one, I'm quite proud of this one. Lee McKinney of Eclipse made this up for me to my design. I've got a lot of strong feelings about cornets. You get a purer tone if you use a pure metal. And effectively, there's only two metals which qualify. One of them is copper and the other is silver. So I've made the entire bell right back to the valve in this one of copper. It has 4 slides, of which 3 are cornet pitches with different resistance, and this one is actually a trumpet slide, a trumpet mouthpiece slide. If you occasionally want to use a trumpet mouthpiece, and there are reasons for that. It's got a very nice trigger system, one there and one there. But I don't think there's a lot more to say. It's the cornets nearly always, if they get dropped, get dinged on the back of the bow. And on this one I've put, don't laugh, a snake on it, just to protect it. You could drop it like that and it wouldn't really hurt. It's got a nice tone with the bronze. Then we come to a bit of a survivor. Everybody thinks that it's an American cornet because of the long bell. In fact, Besson in the 30s and 40s, and even in the 50s, made quite a few cornets, just referred to as the long model, with, instead of masses of curves around here, made rather like a smaller trumpet. A very nice cornet indeed. It used to belong to the great Swiss band leader, Quasi Bonjour, who was my ex-uncle-in-law. That's a good relationship for you. Plays a Dream. I used it in the Long Milford silver band for many, many years, and I'm very attached to it. Then we come to a couple of weirdos. This is the Bousset cornet, B-O-O-S-E, acute accent. He was a German band leader who used to work for a bit in Germany, a bit in Denmark, and then emigrated to England and became bandmaster of 2 or 3 different British bands. A lovely man, a good composer, and he invented this, the Bousset cornet. I wrote an article about it, and I got a phone call from a Miss Bousset, and she turns out to be his great-great-granddaughter and the the only living Bousset left in the world. And damn me, she lived in Long Melford. So I went round to play this for her, just so that she could see one for the first time and hear the kind of noise it made. And she had all his bits and pieces, like his beautiful golden ivory baton, conductor's baton, that he was presented with and so on. And she was riveted by this. It plays quite like a normal cornet. It's perfectly usable even today. And the last cornet, which you certainly won't come across in this country, it's one I made. I lie. I designed, and it was made up for me. And it's an American over-the-shoulder cornet. American marching bands. They were slightly more separated than ours used to be, and for some reason the following players used to complain that the cornets couldn't be heard, and since they largely set the tempo on the march, that wasn't popular. So this was invented. It feels extremely odd having the sound come out behind your ear. Actually, it's quite easy to play, and after a while it's very pleasant taking some of the weight on the shoulder. Absolutely no use for it in England whatsoever, made up just for a bit of fun. Thank you, that's all for cornets.
That's finished.
Oh, is it still...
No.